Now, whether you realize it or not, Elijah Muhammad was no lightweight man. I'm not saying this because I'm afraid to look at the man, but I must say this to all of you brothers and sisters. Don't just pass him up. Don't just walk by him and say, well, man, he ain't nothing. He got to be something. If Malcolm came out from him, and if Farrakhan came out from him, and if Wallace came out from him, and no matter whether you agree with them or not, and Muhammad Ali came out from him, and every major man in every major city in America that was a Muslim minister was profound in his impacting on that city, and we came from a teacher, how in the hell can you deny that teacher and say that the students were greater than that teacher? Listen, now I'm coming to you, brothers and sisters, because I'm going to reason with you today. Certainly students outgrow their teachers. That's what teachers are for, to make their students greater than them. If you study Marcus Garvey, study Noble Drew Ali, study the great leaders of the past, which one of their disciples do you remember as you remember them? I say Marcus Garvey. Which one of his disciples do you remember? I say Noble Drew Ali. Which one of his disciples do you remember? I say Elijah Muhammad. This was not a selfish man. We just needed to come to understand the man. He was not selfish. He was similar to Moses in that Moses had an impediment of speech. Pharaoh didn't feel that Moses could ever be made clear. So Pharaoh laughed at Moses just like America laughed at Elijah Muhammad because Elijah Muhammad was not a great talker. But as Moses had Aaron and Jesus had Peter, Malcolm came out of prison. Now, brothers and sisters, Malcolm was already great. Make no mistake about it. The essence of greatness that was in Malcolm was not produced by Elijah Muhammad. The essence of greatness that was in Malcolm and that is in you is produced of the Creator and the suffering and the trials and the tribulations that all of us have been under. It has shaped us and mocked us out for greatness, but since we had no avenue to express that greatness, we expressed it in drugs and finger pockets and the good old party life. And that's what Malcolm did. Is that right? His greatness was expressed like we express ours on this college campus, in the party life, in the good times life. But even in that, he showed signs of outstanding brilliant. He was a thinking hustler, as most hustlers do think. But Malcolm was an outstanding thinking hustler. Yes, he was. Are you saying that to discredit him, Brother Farrakhan? I beg your pardon, brother. To discredit him would be to discredit myself. No, but we want to look at it now. When Malcolm was a young boy, according to his autobiography, he wanted to be a lawyer. Isn't that true? What did the teacher tell us? Oh, Malcolm, maybe you should try being a carpenter. Because nobody wants a black lawyer. I don't want, my people don't want one, and your people don't have confidence in them. Ironically, when I was in the 6th grade, I wanted to be a doctor. I played the violin. My teacher asked me, Lewis, what do you want to become? I said, I would like to be a doctor, Miss Hurley. Good Irish teacher I had. You know what Miss Hurley told me? Oh, Louis, we must face reality. White people will not go to a black doctor, and neither will your own people have confidence in you as a doctor, but you do play the violin beautifully. When I met Malcolm in 1952 or 3, I was playing in a nightclub in Boston, Massachusetts, and this man had come to town, Malcolm X. He was shaking up Boston with his preaching against the white man. And I was a musician, and I didn't want nothing to do with that kind of quote-unquote radical talk. So as I came out of Eddie Levine's nightclub on Mass near Columbus Avenue, going across near Wally's Paradise into the chicken lane, where we all used to hang out in between sets, there was this tall, really stunning man in a brown tam, brown coat, brown suit, brown shoes, brown gloves. And a friend of mine said, Gene, they used to call me, I'd like to introduce you to Malcolm X. And he looked down at me. How you doing? And I shook hands with him and got away immediately. I was scared of him. That was my first encounter with Minister Malcolm. 3 years later, in 1955, I began to go to college in the South and saw the conditions of the South and black folk in the South, and went to the Christian church. And as a black man going into a white Christian church, I had to sit in the balcony. I said, man, this is jive. I said, something's wrong with this thing, and I was getting the hell out of Christianity. I knew this wasn't Jesus' teaching, this ain't God's teaching. I prayed for the destruction of America. I hated her. Because as I traveled through the South and have to stop at a bus stop, you know, and black people had to go in a little side entrance, white folks go into this beautiful entrance, and in a half-moon-sized shape cut in the wall near the toilet, where the stench of urine is coming from the toilet, I had to order my hamburger. And everybody accepted it. I took the damn hamburger, threw it in the trash, and walked out, prayed to God to destroy this country. And America may know, may be great, damn it, when you deny humanity to another people, you ain't great. You're an animal, and you deserve destruction for your evil. Hear me now, that's my feeling. I ain't never loved you. Never. Because I felt the pain from a baby of suffering black people, and I didn't know how in the hell you could claim to be a godly and see people suffering like this and inflict it on them. I couldn't understand it, but I wasn't willing to accept Elijah Muhammad's definition of it. So one day I was playing in a nightclub in Chicago called the Blue Angel, singing my calypsos. Time for Muslim convention. A friend of mine said, Elijah Muhammad was speaking. Would you like to come and hear him? I was ready. I said, yeah, I'll come right now. Yeah, where is he? I went on down to the Temple Brothers and sisters, and that thing lifted me up. been in no place people raise my hand, put it in my pocket and everything. I said, man, how you doing, baby? You know how we are in show business. I had my little do on. Went in this time, hey, baby, what's happening? What's going on? Took my wife and put her in another room. I couldn't understand that. Took me and put me in the balcony with the rest of the most strangest looking people in the world. I met people, saw people that I knew, grew up with, and I was waving at them across the aisle. Hey, they were looking at me, that stone expression. All of a sudden, I heard somebody say, "It's hot!" Everybody stood up. "The messenger of Allah!" I heard these little feet. And then Honorable Elijah Muhammad got up on the speaker stand and said, "Assalamu alaikum." And if you ever listen to him speak, you really had to love to hear what he had to say in order to listen to what he had to say. But he said, "In the name of Allah, the most merciful, to whom all holy praises is due." Now, I grew up in Boston, a student in English. And when I heard this man say, "To whom all holy praises is due," instead of "are due," I said, "Oh, hell, this man can't even talk." Malcolm was on the rostrum with him. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked right up in my face. Said, "Brother, I didn't get a chance to go to the schools as you did." He said, "When I got there, the door was closed." He said, "But brother, don't you pay no attention to how I'm saying it. Pay attention to what I'm saying. And then you take it and put it in that fine language that you know." I'm scared to death now. I know what I was thinking about. And I eased back out. He was still looking up at me. I part heard what he said. I part understood. I didn't fully understand, but I knew and felt his sincerity, and so I got up to accept and become a Muslim. I went on back to New York, and I went to Temple number 7, where Malcolm X was teaching. I ain't never heard a man teach like that in my life. Malcolm just seemed to crystallize it for me. And when I heard him, Malcolm was a magnificent teacher. He had a way of understanding how people's minds worked and to build up his subject matter and weave it around the condition of your mind and lead you gently to the point and then nail you on that point until you were convinced. He was so marvelous a teacher that naturally I came in the mosque under him and became a student under him. I grew to love Minister Malcolm X. I walked with him where he walked, went with him where he taught, and began to share the experience of his growth in the nation of Islam. Malcolm was by far the greatest minister that the messenger ever had, far beyond the realm of most men's minds. Malcolm had a unique, uncanny ability not only to see a thing, but to see into a thing, then be able to relate other things to that thing. As we began to grow, jealousy arose in the ranks for Malcolm. Now, brothers and sisters, you have never been hurt until you've been hurt by the jealousy of your own brothers and sisters whom you are struggling for. There is no one of us who came through the 60s who got into any kind of leadership position who didn't have to carry the burden of someone's jealousy or envy of us. And it's a hell of a burden to struggle with. It's one thing to struggle against an external enemy, but you have never been in a struggle until you struggle against an enemy within your own ranks that says he believes like you believe. Malcolm began to feel this kind of internal enmity and jealousy arising for him, especially among the leadership. You mean Mr. Muhammad? No, I don't. I mean Malcolm's peers, although he didn't have any peers. We would sit together for hours and discuss that which Malcolm was going through. It seemed like Lewis was always the one that he could talk to, because I never offered Malcolm no resistance. I was a willing student of Malcolm. I loved him, admired him, all but worshiped him, and was willing to give my life for him because of his value to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his value ultimately to the struggle of black people. This is not just words, this is real. But there would come a time that as Malcolm began to evolve and to grow, this jealousy would intensify among the ministry and the laboring staff at headquarters in Chicago. So much so that the work that Malcolm did for the good of the nation, his motives began to be suspect. I've never seen a man more tireless in his devotion, in my judgment. I've never seen a man work as hard as Malcolm worked. But these are things that I want you to understand about Malcolm. Number one, Malcolm was a realist. Number two, Malcolm did not believe in no mystery God that was going to drop something down out of the sky for Malcolm or for anybody else. Malcolm believed that we had to be prepared in order to do anything. He believed in preparation. He believed in study. He believed in execution. Malcolm was morally meticulous. Now, these are things that you should know about the man you admire. Malcolm did not smoke. So don't claim Malcolm and be puffing yourself to death. Malcolm was no reefer smoker. He was supremely well-disciplined. I never saw Malcolm so much as chew gum or pop a piece of candy in his mouth between meals. Malcolm ate one meal a day, to the best of my knowledge, for the 12 years that he was in Islam, and for the 9 years that I knew him, I never saw him break that code.
To come and get me at 5 o'clock in the morning,
and we would pray together. Now, why talk about Malcolm and not talk about Malcolm as a religious person? Unless you want to say that Malcolm had no religious conviction at all. That religion didn't play a part in shaping Malcolm's development. Don't do that. Don't rob him of his commitment to a God. But Malcolm had a real view of God. He didn't believe that you should sit around and pray to God and then sit on your backside and do nothing. No. He believed in no mystery God. He believed in what the Holy Quran teaches, that Allah will never change the condition of a people until they change it themselves. So he knew that prayer wouldn't get it alone. A man had to pray, but then he had to get up and work to make his own prayer reality. Malcolm didn't chase women. Now listen to me, brother. To the best of my knowledge, and I can't say that I know all, but to the best of my knowledge, I never saw Malcolm show any sign, even in looking at women, in a way where he would make a little hint to them that catch me around the stage door in the back in the dark after I finish. Women adored Malcolm. And the reason they adored Malcolm is because they couldn't have him. Ain't that something? Let's run that back. Play that back again. Now remember, this is my perspective. I have never seen a woman that met Malcolm that he didn't make either hate him or love him. And most of them that said they hated him really loved him because in him they met for the first time a man. And the problem of black women all over America is the need for a man. A real live man. Look, brother and sister, I watch our women in church. When Jesus' name is mentioned, you see the clamor arise from our women. When Reverend just mentions his name, you hear them do this. Hallelujah. What is this you're going through, sister? What's going on, sister? What's happening in your mind, sister? I know what it is. When Reverend said, Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the Savior. And you know how much hell you catching in your daily life. You need a Jesus in your life, all right? So when his name is mentioned, you just go up. Well, when Malcolm came along, you didn't have to call on Jesus no more. For somebody that looked like Jesus appeared in a palpable form that you could touch. And he made demands on men and women. He could walk into a room and immediately his presence would bring order to that room. Yes, it was. But what we don't want to see is that behind this man, there was a teacher. Now, brother and sister, that's where we, in a sense, fall off the law. Because now the teacher of Malcolm is looked at as an immoral man, and a vile man, and a filthy man. And Malcolm, in many respects, looked like he's more disciplined, more principled than his teacher. All right? Now, if you will bear with me till 4 o'clock, I think I can finish it by 4. Now, brother and sister, as the jealousy against Malcolm arose, honest to God, Malcolm struggled to keep his leader out front. I watched him. As rumors began to spread that Elijah Muhammad was involved in some illicit affairs, and Malcolm heard this, and he still was trying to defend his teacher, Malcolm came under increasing burden to continue to defend his teacher. Malcolm began to believe that Elijah Muhammad himself was jealous of Malcolm. Now, we got to deal with it. Because when Malcolm made accomplishments, he would pick up the Muhammad 6 newspaper, and the Times would have it in. The Washington Post would have it in there, but Muhammad Speaks wouldn't have it in there. He was a Muslim first. He was working for the nation. Why would the nation not print what Malcolm was doing of value for the nation? This hurt Malcolm. He was very, very hurt. Malcolm wasn't popping off at John Fitzgerald Kennedy on his own. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had pointed out the deceitfulness of Kennedy to Malcolm. And in all Malcolm's speeches, he was calling John Kennedy John the Fox. Go back and read in 1963 when the boys were getting ready for the March on Washington. Malcolm is the only one that saw the trickery and the chicanery of the government of America, how it maneuvered the civil rights movement. And Malcolm spoke out against it forcefully in 1963. Toward the end of 63, after the March on Washington, Malcolm is coming under increasing internal pressure in the nation. I don't know what he's undergoing. All I know is he's under tremendous pressure. You could see it in his face. You could hear it in his voice as I traveled with him on the college campuses. He was beginning to lose his grip. And as Malcolm would lash white people, I've seen him lash white people to such a degree in a white institution that whites come right on up out of the audience to attack Malcolm. He had seemed to lose a balance and a perspective because somehow whatever turmoil was going on inside his mind in 63 was now beginning to manifest itself in certain moves that he had begun to make. Now, what we've got to understand is this. Malcolm was brilliant. Malcolm was wise. Malcolm was articulate. Malcolm was on the case. Malcolm pointed out the evil of white America. Yes, this is all true. But while Malcolm was doing that, what was the enemy doing? You see that camera back there? That camera has been on me ever since I started. There are people in here taking notes. Not necessarily for a term paper. I don't know who the hell they're working for. But when Malcolm would appear, I would always be with him when he appeared on the East Coast. When he was at Harvard, there Malcolm was talking, but there were people in the audience always standing back upstairs. When the people would get a rise out of what Malcolm said, they would jot down the thing that Malcolm got a rise out of him on the point that he made. They would take those kind of films. They would put Malcolm on television in New York, and then he would fly to California, sometimes tired, no sleep, and they would question him again. But the newscaster was not questioning them on their own. It was the United States government behind feeding this one a question for him, feeding that one a question for him. Then when it was all over, pull the film into a room and sit down body language experts, voice stress analysts, psychiatrists and psychologists to study Malcolm and sit still, because you're not dealing with no little lightweight faggot when you deal with the white man. You're dealing with a scientist of evil, brother. Right? You're not dealing with nobody that you can just jump up and handle with your damn foolishness. You're dealing with a man that ruled the world, and he can keep on moving it. You can't have with no damn backroom philosophy, right? And strip the white man out of power. You're out of your damn mind. This white man free you into these damn colleges. These ain't nothing but experimental playpens for him, not for you, damn it. Say, come on, let me hear you. I'm going to give you tenure. I'm going to make you a professor. For what? I want to see what's in your mind, damn it. I want to give you a freedom to explore your mind. So if I can take the elements of your brain and stop others from seeing it the way you see it, then I can stop you. California is famous for that. Bring these great black minds out here to Stanford. All of the socialists, the Marxist-Leninists. Come on. Let me hear what you got on your mind. And if you talk your theories, they be taping you, listening to you, having your students report on you, then they go back. What do you think about that? You said something we got to deal with. The niggas are beginning to listen to it. in with a lightweight. If you underestimate your enemy, you're dead before you begin. Brother and sister, as they began to sift Malcolm, they saw that Malcolm believed in Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but like all of us, there was some area of doubt. And the area of doubt in Malcolm was that his teacher was jealous of him and that his teacher was an immoral man. Once those areas of doubt arose, and Malcolm made the statement that it was a case of the chickens coming home to roost, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad punished him for making that statement, then Malcolm knew that he couldn't continue inside the nation, or believed he couldn't. The internal jealousies were tremendous, and feeling that the very leader that you gave your all completely to had betrayed you, he had to leave. So he made his exit. And when Malcolm made his exit, all of us inside the nation began attacking Malcolm. I was one of them. Malcolm was put into a position, and he responded as he would because that's his nature. Now the FBI files can come out and say how they engineered it. But you don't all read them damn files. How they engineered and maneuvered the climate. Say yes, there may be a case we got the wrong Muslims for killing Malcolm. They admit and they knew it in 1964 that they had the wrong, the 1966 family. That they didn't have the ones that killed Malcolm. But what the hell did they care? They don't care right now. For most black brothers, they don't need no witness. All they need is an excuse. And they wanted to cement the case that Muslims killed Malcolm so that those who loved Malcolm and those who loved Elijah Muhammad would clash with each other and eliminate each other. Then white folks would be able to go on the street. They would have the true baddest men that they feared, Elijah and his turn to Malcolm out of the way. So when the controversy was going back and forth, when Malcolm raised the question of Elijah Muhammad's morality, this inflamed every Muslim follower of Mr. Muhammad. I mean, do you understand what it's like to believe in a man? You ain't never had that kind of belief. You ain't that kind of belief about you haven't had a leader that you walk behind with that kind of commitment. Many people don't even understand what it was in Mr. Muhammad that could get the commitment of a man like Malcolm so totally. Malcolm would deny his own life for his teacher. Ain't no ordinary man that bought that kind of commitment, brother and sister. That's an extraordinary man that you've got to come to grips with. When Malcolm felt that his teacher betrayed him, the anger in him, the hurt in him, the pain in him, he lashed out. And in lashing out, even though the Muslims were lashing out at Malcolm, it created a problem. I mean, the time was ready. They were sitting there, the time was ready. Now the dirty FBI and CIA, they hide their hands in the whole night. Don't you know that the scripture says there are 2 or 3 gathered together in my name? There I am also in the midst of you. That's for God and Jesus, and that's for the FBI too. You don't make no damn plans. You say white folks don't know nothing about it. Every damn thing you plan, you get off the phone. Hey, bro, I got something in mind. Come on over. When you meet, he's meeting with you. He got all kinds of ways, not only monitoring Russia, monitoring China, monitoring Vietnam, but you know what? He can monitor countries thousands of miles away. Niggas ain't no problem. He didn't accident, brother, that Malcolm was threatening people. Up until the day that Malcolm was assassinated, Malcolm was having everybody that came into the ballroom to hear him say all the stuff.
They knew there was a threat on Malcolm's life, but no uniformed policemen were present. Is that an accident? No policemen were in the ballroom? Come on. And dudes just walked in with shotguns under their clothes? No, it didn't happen like that, brother. There's a hidden agent that exploited an incendiary condition. And even though I believe that certain Muslims were responsible for the assassination of Malcolm X, I do not believe it could have gone on without the complicity of the United States government in the way that they knew it and permitted it to happen. And let me tell you something. If you are a policeman and you suspect that a crime is about to be committed and you have full knowledge of it, it is your duty as an officer of the law to stop the crime and punish the intended criminal for the intent to commit the crime. But if you hear that a crime is going to be committed and you aid that crime in being committed, and then hide your dirty hands as though you did nothing. Well, Malcolm is gone. And the last words that I spoke to Malcolm as I leave you, brothers and sisters, he said to me in his Psalm 11:97, he said, I'm at New York. He said, Brother Lewis, my name is on a one-day deal. He said, I wish it was you being an example for me rather than me being an example of you. When Malcolm left the nation, Malcolm needed time to get to himself, to think, to reflect. Because when your whole mind revolves around a man and the teaching of that man, and you lose confidence in that man, then his teaching lose value to you, and you don't need to be out talking because you're confused. You need to get back, withdraw, review the situation, gather yourself to emerge again. Malcolm didn't have no time to do that. And that's why every week in the last year of his life, he seemed to be changing his philosophy from week to week or from month to month. It was not that Malcolm was not a man that knew that change was necessary, but it was because he was steering the public while he was formulating new ideas and ways, and he should have been out of the public, getting himself together and in truth. Now, why are you talking like this, Brother Farrakhan? Because this little brother, unknowing that Malcolm was actually prophetic in what he was saying, lived to walk right up to Malcolm's feet. I also became national spokesman for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Frightening thing that as I became Mr. Muhammad's national spokesman, drew closer to the messenger. I became to him as Malcolm was to him a spokesman and an articulator of his ideas. God knows he gave me a lucid tongue, but Elijah Muhammad fueled that tongue with knowledge. Malcolm groomed me, yes he did, but now there I was alone. My 9-year companion and friend gone, dead. And here I was, out there in a strange world, seeking for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And slowly but surely, people begin to admire Brother Farrakhan. Admire what? His brilliant speech, his ability to articulate ideas, but not my ideas, his ideas. But look at the messenger. Recognizing he's getting older, recognizing his time among us was running short, what does a wise man do? He prepares his students for the eventuality of life. Look, brother, don't you go to the dojo? You know when you go to the dojo and dojo is like where they go to the martial arts. Nobody pray with you when they get ready to throw you down. Oh, man, they throw you. Man, you got hit. That's pain. know that in my own recent family, there was a seed of this kind of envy and jealousy was to destroy Brother Farrakhan. I would come to the table of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and at one time he would say to me things that would lift me up, and at another time he would say things to me that would have me going home and driving by the waterfront, crying, wondering why he said that, why he do that. I didn't understand. But I came to know something, brother and sister, because I too began to believe that Elijah Muhammad was wrong. And listen, I'm confessing a thought. I'm confessing a thing that came up in my mind that I was beat out because I didn't want to entertain those kind of thoughts about my leader and teacher, because once you begin to think that your leader is jealous of you, can't serve him no more. You understand? Now look, brothers and sisters, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad departs from us, his son comes into power. I know what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had said to me. But in his departure, I feel totally lost. Wallace Muhammad said, I know the way. I said, go ahead, brother. I'll back you up. As God is my witness, no envy, not jealousy, but recognizing that leadership is a responsibility, and you can't play games with people's lives over vanity of being called a leader. If I didn't feel that I knew where the next step was, why should I try to fight for a seat that I didn't feel qualified to sit in? So when Wallace Muhammad said he knew the way, I said, go on, brother, and take it, and I'll back you up as long as you with your father. I'm trying to defend a policy that I just ain't comfortable with. Now I'm beginning to feel this thing that Malcolm felt. Everywhere I went, people looking at me as an enemy, trailing behind me in the Caribbean and South America. I mean, actually lying on me and my motives. Hear me now. But before the messenger left, this is a very key point. Please, if you don't hear nothing else, I want you to hear this key point. After I had taken all of the envy and jealousy of the laborers of Mr. Muhammad that I could, I decided we was going to have a showdown at high noon in Mr. Muhammad's house, and I was going to get to the bottom of this. If we had to fight, we'd go down. I get to Mr. Muhammad's table, and take I got to Mr. Muhammad's table, and when I brought up this envy and this jealousy and was getting into the fight, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad hit the table with his hand and said, brother, seek refuge in Allah from the envious when he envied him. Got up and he walked out. And when he walked out of the room, he threw my thing. Because I was ready to fight. He wasn't there. He killed the fight. I couldn't understand. Then he comes back in. 5 minutes later, and he sits at the table. Now, brother, he said, when you're getting ready to use a piece of wood to hold up the corner of a building, you have to put stress on it. And if it cracks under the stress, you know that's not the piece of board you were looking for, and you throw it away, and you get another. He never said another word. I don't think I understood it until 9 months ago. This is the kind of man that Elijah Muhammad was and is. He drops things in your brain that have time capsules. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, it opens up a whole new avenue for you. The man was and is a master teacher. It was my thinking that he was jealous of me, listen to me good now, that made me stumble. And I slipped. And I fell. And when Wallace Muhammad, now I'm telling you what I'm beginning to understand about Malcolm's mind. When Wallace Muhammad began attacking his father, this meant that if his father wasn't any good, all the body of knowledge that he taught us, we had nothing in it to look to, so this rendered us confused, immobile, unable to function. Until we got a grip on something that we could hold on to, we were finished. And that's what happened to Malcolm. Malcolm needed to withdraw and get a grip on his mind. He didn't have that chance. And the messenger kept warning me. He said, brother, remember Malcolm. And don't go the way of Malcolm, brother. And all that Malcolm wanted, brother, will come to you. I didn't know what it meant. Now, 4 years after Mr. Muhammad's departure, I understand it by the grace of God. And I shall explain. Why is this, all this jealousy? Why was it directed to Malcolm? Why did Elijah Muhammad seem to direct it to Malcolm? You know why, brothers and sisters? Because if Elijah Muhammad knew that his time among us was limited, somebody had to be prepared to carry on his work. The hadith of Prophet Muhammad says, the three most envied men is a rich man who gives away his wealth to the poor, a wise man who teaches knowledge to the ignorant, and the man to whom the Holy Quran is revealed. Malcolm should never have run from envy. Malcolm ultimately had to face envy and jealousy, because if you are going to be a leader, your people are not always going to understand where you're going. Some of them are going to hate you. Some of them are going to scorn you. Some of them are going to speak evil of you. But you've got to be able to take it all and hold your course and be steady as you are, and never become vindictive against the people that are against you, because you know they don't understand. But if you understand, then you got to hold your course. And what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing, as I later learned, was directing that to Malcolm and watching to see how Malcolm handled it. It may seem cruel. It grieves me to know that it broke a man and said to that man's death. But I'm here today because Malcolm died, that I might live. Hear me now, brother. That man was a friend to me. He was a brother to me. He has never told me anything other than right. And the last words he said is, I wish it was you being an example for me rather than me being an example for you. So when the time came that I could no longer agree with Wallace D. Muhammad, I had an example to go by. I quietly withdrew. My brothers in the world community attacked me viciously, and still do to this very day. They try to read my motives. Farrakhan just in this for money. You a damn fool. I'm not no little foolish, lightweight fella. I got talent. I don't need to be playing this kind of foolishness to be a man to get money from you. Hell no. All that a man have will he give for his life. I don't need to be out here saying these kind of things angering the United States government, the Arabs, you and everybody else for a damn dollar that I may not live to spend. It ain't money that I want. I want to see the unity of the black man. And I recognize Elijah Muhammad was no wicked man. Yes, Muhammad did have wives, not little teenage secretaries. That's slander. And that was unworthy of Malcolm. That kind of use of words was unworthy of Malcolm. You can't go in no African society and condemn an African leader because he got more than one wife. They laugh at you, brother. Why did Elijah Muhammad have more than one wife? Because ultimately and eventually, when the liberation struggle comes down, the ranks of the black male is going to be decimated, leaving a lot of women around here with no men. And a man had to show us how to take more than one wife and be honorable to them all. Elijah, listen good, damn it. I want to defend the righteous man. Elijah Muhammad wasn't no man running around here because he was after some damn woman. With all the birth control pills and abortion clinics, what the hell would he look like fathering 13 children? The man got more sense than that. You don't find President Kennedy's babies popping up everywhere. You don't find Eisenhower's crap everywhere. Those men may have had carnal desires, but they never produced children, did they? Elijah Muhammad could have said to a sister, there's an abortion clinic around the corner if you're pregnant. Have the baby. Put them in home. Take care of them. Educate the children. Well, why didn't he let it be known? That's his domestic life. And at a certain point in your development, you would grow to be able to handle his domestic life without looking upon him as a low-down, filthy, immoral man. How could he be low-down and filthy and at the same time inspire righteous conduct in us, in Malcolm, and all of those of us who believed in him? He wasn't no low-down man. God damn it, and I defy the whole world. I stand against the whole damn world for that man and what that man taught and what that man was and what that man is. He wasn't jealous of Malcolm. When a man knows himself, he don't have to be jealous and envious of his students, but he wanted to make Malcolm that object, that real leader. Because you can't be no leader of black people and not have your own people hate you. Go ahead, Mr. Abu Bakari. He's the head of the Republic of New Africa. Your own people. You have to do it for us. Whoa, we just do experts doing it to each other. And if we're going to let our own evil to one another take us off the course, we'll never be busy. I have suffered that kind of thing. And I'm still suffering. If you don't read in the press, Farrakhan attacked Wallace D. Muhammad. I refuse to let the press interview you. Who taught you that, Brother Farrakhan? Malcolm did. Why won't you come out and attack the Muslims since they're attacking you? Because Malcolm said he was an example for me. And I know Whitey's sitting behind the door waiting for me to create the climate. It's already there. All I got to do is start playing into it. And then brother will kill brother. For what? It ain't worth it. So when white folks say, Brother Farrakhan, we'd like to interview you for People magazine, I say, go see other people. New York Times called me twice. We want to feature you in a story. Oh, hell. I know there was a time when I would give one of my teeth in the front to get a featured story in the New York Times. I told the cat from the Times, excuse the expression, I said, I will not be taking any interviews for 2 or 3 years. You may come back and see me then. Chicago Tribune said, Mr. Farrakhan, we just talked to Wallace, and they say over there that you're in this for money. What do you say? I say that they can say what they please. Thank you. When Imam Wallace D. Muhammad printed in the Bilalian News an appeal to Farrakhan, one of the Bilalian News reporters came to me and said, what is your answer to the Imam's appeal? I said, I have his telephone number. And whenever I get ready to answer him, I will call him directly. I will not speak to him through you or through any other medium. They're trying to make the problem between me and W.D. Muhammad. It's not a problem between me and W.D. Muhammad. The problem is between W.D. Muhammad and his father. I choose to follow his father. I believe in the correctness of his father's position. And I hope to prove to all that the Islam that his father taught is broad enough to include all that Malcolm envisioned. Yes, it is. It's broad enough to embrace nationalism, and yet not narrow enough to exclude the universality of its truth. I will prove that the Nation of Islam, as conceived and taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is not some lightweight, limited thing, but it has the capacity within it to embrace us in our development. But I leave that not to talk it, but one day soon we shall demonstrate. And therefore I refuse the media, because I don't think in reality we need the media. I don't think that we need to go in front of the television talking about strategies for black liberation. There's no white general that talks his strategy in front of his enemy. And we don't know who our friends are until they're tried and tested and brought through the fire. So whatever thoughts you have for the liberation of our people, you have to store them away. And what you say publicly or even privately, don't be afraid to go back out and say it publicly again, because you're going to hear it again. So as I leave you, brothers and sisters, I thank you for your indulgence. I think that my experience enables me to build a bridge between Malcolm and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I think my experience shows me that we have got to be able to get around the stumbling blocks of our personality and search for truths that will live longer than our person or our personality. I bear witness as I leave you that the struggle will intensify.